Okay, so mixing and mastering with Airwindows plugins. I've been kind of building up to this, and I almost didn't do it tonight, but I need to soldier through it. I did my best to gather my thoughts on it, and I have kind of a game plan here going in. So I'll start by saying that these these are not your typical plugins by any means. The whole point of these plugins is okay. So they're characterized first and foremost primarily by subtlety and the overarching theme of purpose and application for these plugins is it's very, very old school, that kind of thing. This is for people who have living memories of life before digital audio. It's very pragmatic, practical, realistic, and it's also dreamy and outlandish in its own way. So I don't want to spend a lot of time kind of like trying to paraphrase this. I think it's better just to dive in and show you what it's all about. So, excuse me. Let's start with the man. This is the man behind Airwindows. I don't know much about him. This is his website, airwindows.com. And I'm just going to go ahead and shrink myself here so that you can get myself out of the way. This is Chris. This is the mad genius behind Airwindows. And, scrolling around his site, there's no bio, which is exactly what you'd expect from a person like this. But from what I've gathered, I think he's affiliated in some way with MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology. I have that impression. He subsists, I think, on Patreon support, and he's just got a very contrarian approach to audio in general, digital audio in particular. He's highly technical. This is a real engineer's engineer. And this is a person of very focused and pure intentionality, and just extreme capability. So this is his website, airwindows.com, and as far as I can tell, everything that he offers is for free, and it's available on all platforms, Windows, Mac, and Linux. I think a lot of it, if not all of it, is, well, I don't know. I've seen him talk about it being open source, and he has a YouTube channel. I'll show you that here in a second. But this is his website, and whenever he comes out with a new plugin, he does a video where he he demos the plugin and explains it in terms that I can barely follow. You know, I'm not terribly good at with technical details. I'm more of a knob twiddler. I try to learn as best I can, the concepts that he talks about. When he starts to talk about math and algorithms and technical jargon, I can't follow it, but he certainly knows what he's talking about. And it's like with a lot of things. I do my best to stay on top of current events, things. I always tell my long-suffering missus, she used to wonder why I pay so much attention to the outside world. And it's like, as I try to tell her, we're monkeys in our tree in a big, dangerous jungle. And you're focused on the our little tree and what's going on in the tree. And, but I've got to go up to the top of the tree and look out over the jungle. Look at what all the other monkeys are doing on the tops of their trees, and especially the big monkeys. And I got to scan the weather. So I always try to listen to people that are way smarter than I am and know a lot more than I do. But at the same time, I've got a really good bullshit detector. And I listen to people that my intuition and everything else tells me that they're never intentionally deceitful. They're honest to the best of their ability. They're truthful. And this is that kind of guy, right? And so I'm constantly trying to learn from this guy, but his tools have enabled me to do things that I ordinarily could not have done. And so with that said, let's just go. So again, here's his website. And kinds of things, right? There's all look at all these plugins. Just all available for download. They install just like easy peasy. Very minimal user interface. No bullshit. Just everything works. Just download it, install it. It's there. It works. Another hallmark of Airwindows plugins is very, very vanishingly minimal CPU load. They don't. You could have a zillion of them open, and it wouldn't. Your CPU would just barely bat an eye. So there they all are, and I'll say this from the get-go. It's somewhere on here. What I did, okay, consolidated plugin, Airwindows consolidated. That's how I first heard about Chris and Airwindows. I saw someone mention Airwindows consolidated. I thought, oh, that's an unwieldy, kind of weird name. Went and checked it out. So what it is it's one plugin. When you look at it in your DAW, I use Cakewalk. I've had a couple of people kind of scratch their heads about that. Why are you using Cakewalk? I've never used Cakewalk. Yeah, I use Cakewalk. For reasons. It's Cakewalk is billed as a hobbyist DAW, which it is. But it's not to be sold short. Cakewalk is powerful. It's fully featured. It does more than I need. Okay, I don't fully exploit Cakewalk, but it's also really intuitive. For example, You want to set up your inputs and outputs, you click the preferences button. It's all right there. You know, took me like an hour to figure out how to get mic input on Cubase. I don't know why it can't be this simple, right? So Cakewalk, I love it. I love Cakewalk. And I use it on this channel also because I'm trying to help total beginners. And this is Cakewalk is the best of all worlds, in my opinion. Anyway, back to Airwindows Consolidated. So let's just say that I'm going to add yet another plugin to my master bus. I click the little plus sign and insert audio effects, and there it is, Airwindows Consolidated. It falls under uncategorized, Airwindows Consolidated. So it appears in your DAW as one plugin, but I'm going to go ahead and click on this one, which is called 2Vinyl 14. And it's one plugin on the surface, but if you click on the menu drop down, you can see that it's a whole bunch of plugins bundled into one. And it wisely defaults to Chris thinks of everything. So, for example, I'm gonna start this playback. Hopefully the CPU doesn't glitch because I've kind of taxed it a bit with this mix. But I'm just gonna hit play, and I'm gonna drop in an Airwindows plugin, and you'll see what happens. Okay, yeah, it's glitching. So I need to freeze some more tracks. Let me see. Open. Didn't open this yet. So, okay. Do it with this. So, I'm going to hit playback, and I'm going to drop in another Airwindows plugin. I'll do it here in the channel strip. See what happened? It defaults to a galactic reverb, which will not damage speakers if you inadvertently happen to fire the plugin up when everything's on full blast. And he has he has tools in this kit that will fuck up your speakers if you're not careful. I mentioned that subtlety is a major theme, but what I meant is that the purposes of application are subtle. In other words, he makes this point frequently that if you're hearing pronounced differences, then you're probably overusing it. A lot of these plugins can be driven to extremes that can cause physical damage to things like speakers, right? So it defaults to something that won't do that. Chris is he has a very thorough mind. Anyway, that's what it looks like. And they're categorized. Ambience, bass, biquads, brightness, clipping, consoles. What do I make most use of? I make most use of the brightness plugins, the clipping plugin occasionally, consoles. Every single mix gets console LA bus and sometimes console LA channel. On this mastering job, I really had to really think about if I was going to use console 0. I chose not to, but okay. So distortion, McAdee, I've used that once. dithers, don't understand them, don't use them. Dynamics, I've used PyWhack once. These, not all of these are for everybody. Okay. His reverbs, I use Cream Coat for vocals. My approach to reverb these days is I use Reverb, which is Cakewalk's native reverb. I'll generally put that in a bus, and I will apply that to individual tracks to taste. I no longer some people like to use different reverbs for different tracks for purposes of distinction and separation. That's not an approach that I favor anymore. So I generally choose a cathedral reverb setting from Cakewalk's native reverb plugin. Put that in a bus. Apply it with sends to different tracks. But for vocals, I will often apply Cream Coat. And he has a new K Cathedral that he just came out with, which is quite nice. Actually, Josh over there at Soundacres, you might like his. You might like to play with his K Cathedral plugin with your Hammond and your Leslie. He's got some plate reverbs which I've used. They're all good, They're more the kind of reverbs that you use for that I find that I want to use for individual channels, not as a master reverb, mixed reverb, if that makes sense. So dynamics, okay. Effects, I've used his trims, but that's not really okay. The good stuff for me is brightness, consoles. This is what I'm going to focus on tonight. So brightness, consoles, filter. Yes, filter. Yes. Stonefire. Oh man. Saturation, both Creature and Tube 2. Now he's come out with Tube 3, or maybe even Tube 3, I think. And stereo. All of these. Although tonight I'm just going to talk about 2 vinyl and wider. And subtlety. And tape. All right? Those are my main areas of focus with these plugins. And I haven't fully explored them yet. It takes time to understand what these do and to learn how to use them properly. But the one really cool thing about it is this is the UI. This is it. With a rather humorous graphic of the dog covering his ears. There is a there's a input trim and output down here, but these are kind of, you can't really use them because I can't double click this and dial in a numeric value with my keyboard, and you can't fine tune these knobs with the mouse, so I'm not sure what's up with that. I did try to use these on some of his plugins. Like the gain will start. Let's call it the gain stage input. Will start at 0.5, and you'll dial it up to 0.56, and there's no change. And then at 0.57, there's a 6 decibel boost jump, and there's no in between. He has his reasons for that I don't fully understand, but I tried to get around that by tweaking these input and output trims, but to no avail. So anyways, that's it. You know, install Airwindows Consolidated, and you know, start exploring it and watch Chris's videos. And and the other thing is, see, so I want to get rid of this, but before I do, you know, each one of these plugins comes with a little, you know, essay that he wrote about it. And, you know, again, some of the technical details are just lost on me, but I've learned a lot from reading these, and they're informative, and they really do kind of help you know what you're dealing with. And his personality comes through them. He's a very likable mad genius, quite humble. He's a good person, I feel. So anyway, so enough preamble. Oh well, I'm not totally done with the preamble. I had meant to just point this out here on my, you know, I did a rant video today about YouTube and all this stuff. I'm not going to get back into that, but you know, here it is, right? Like, and Weaver Beats, I like this guy. He's funny. He's funny, and he's kind of based, and you know, I like him. But even him, like, you know, these ridiculous thumbnails. Plugins are dead. Well, okay, yeah. As always, it's like there are grains or kernels of truth in these things, but I've noticed a lot lately. There's been a lot of debunking of things like digital EQs, and you know, for good reason. There's a lot of fraud in the world of plugins, and this has been, you know, one guy that I recently kind of slagged. A mastering engineer guy who you know, just but doesn't know what he's talking about when it comes to tracking vocals, but is too proud to admit it. But you know, he did some good work, you know, proving that, you know, if you're paying for compressor plugins, you're wasting your money. You know, for the most part, yeah, 100%, you really are. You don't have to. You shouldn't be paying for a compressor plugin, or really any plugin for that matter. But plugins are dead. Not these plugins. These plugins are not dead. These plugins are very much alive, and we're going to get into them now. So, right. Now, it's unfortunate that, yeah, so what am I going to do about this? I've got to get this playable. So I'm going to pause the video, and hopefully OBS doesn't unpause it for me while I'm tootling around, swearing under my breath. I'm going to have to keep an eyeball on that, but back in a jiff. All right, so it unpaused me. Okay, I'm back. And I think it didn't unpause me again this time. Right, so I just had to go in and freeze some tracks. Freezing means mixing down individual tracks so that the processor isn't having to do all the processing for all these plugins at the same time. Okay, so now I've got playback. Right, so I'm also going to talk about this mix a little bit, referring back to a couple of videos ago. Surrender to shoegaze. This is also kind of following off of that. This ended up being what I consider to be a shoegaze song, and which in one way means that I just I I failed in my intent to do what I normally do and have things separated into their distinct spaces and places and coordinates in the audio space. And so now, shoegazy, it's all just kind of like a wall of sound, as it's sometimes put. Although, wall of sound, I hope it's not just a wall of sound. To me, shoegaze is not wall of sound. It's not the same thing. When I think wall of sound, I think like Rolling Stones, old Rolling Stones, which I'm not a fan of. And you know, just like wall of sound, isn't that kind of like a term from the 60s, late 60s? To me, that just kind of means sloppy mixing or a lack of mixing. I don't know. It is a wall of sound in a way, but to me, wall of sound it lacks textures, and so I want to talk about when I decided to okay, it's going to be a shoegaze sound. I went back and I made that decision at the mastering stage, and then I went back into the mix and I made some adjustments. Just to add more texture and you know, some delineations between, let's say, okay, so guitar tracks on top of each other, occupying the same space, but to texturize it is the best way I can put it. So, you know, again, this is focus on Airwindows, but I'm going to say a couple of things about that. Right, so let me see here. Where was it? Here. Was it there? Yeah, okay. So this track called Slide and Overlay. You can see here that you see these up and down zigzag lines. That's plug-in automation. That is okay. So one bad thing about what I've done here is I've frozen the tracks so I can do playback, but that means I can't open the individual. Can I open the? Yeah, I can open the plugin and show it to you. I can't make any changes, but I don't want to anyway. So this is a Finisher Micro. This is what I call a Desert Island plugin. I use this thing all the time. It's an amazing plugin. It's a compressor. It's a compressor plugin with you know, effects, really wonderful effects. It's got two flanger settings, regular flanger and then jet plane. People slag on flange because it's kind of a cliche sound. It was, but I don't know, with something like flange, it's like I go all in on it when I want to. It can be really, really useful. You can be subtle with it, or you can be not so subtle with it. I really like it. But it can be particularly useful for making things stand out in the stereo field and kind of sweep back and forth and get just kind of. I kind of think of it like think of a typical model of an atom with what the electron, what do they call them, like valence shells, you know, different shells where the electrons orbit, and they what is that, the quantum leap, where it like leaps to a different orbit. That's kind of the way I see. Flanging can kind of like take. You imagine that that track is an electron in orbit at a certain space, and then you can kind of like kick it out and make it vibrate out here, or you can kind of have it vibrating between two different shells, if that makes any sense. And so what I did with the automation was I put, and you can adjust the amount up here. This is a great plugin, UJam Finisher Micro. You got to jump through a few hoops to get it, but I recommend it. So I've got it. So what I've done here with this zigzag line is, so here's the right button, automation right. Click that, hit play, and during playback, I'm sweeping the amount knob back and forth. And so let's just kind of listen to what that does. Now here's before that. Now this is during bypass. The green line is reverb send. The reverb send amount is increasing towards the end of the track as it approaches the end. Again, just to add another element of texture and variation. But so here's what it sounds like, when that plugin is bypassed. I hope this is not too loud. And then here the plugin kicks in. Enough of that, but you get the idea. But a better way to appreciate what's at work here is, and again, sorry, I'm not focusing on Airwindows at the moment, but I feel the need to just like put some attention on this for just a few minutes. So it's like listening to it with the, let's turn some more guitar tracks on. Deluxe, that's obviously a Fender Deluxe amp sim setting. Unfortunately, I can't I can't bypass the plugin right now and AB it, but hopefully you can hear what's going on and how that flange is creating some delineation. And then here's a track called 59 Random 5. Let's hear what that's doing. That's one of my audio interfaces, time-based. I'm going to have to do a focus on this M-Audio black box at some point. It's a wonderful thing. So this is a time-based kind of step filter effect. And so all together. 51 trim 2 soloed. What I am kind of ashamed right now to call organ, since I've made online friends with a real organ player. But this is my makeshift rock organ. It's got an overdriven rock organ sound. That's kind of how I try to use it, and that's throughout the whole song. I consider it to be kind of a floor. I played with some volume automation with it, but I just decided to leave it as just a floor throughout the song. Okay, so and then we've got here are my 2 drum tracks, right? Here's 2 drum tracks. As I mentioned in the earlier video, one thing that I just kind of do as a matter of practice, again, it goes against, you're not supposed to do this, right? In theory, you want everything to be separate, because, back in the days when people walked uphill 10 miles both way to school in the snow, they only had 4 tracks, and they only had 16 tracks, and, tracks were precious, and, separation was precious. Now you can have as many tracks as you want. Why the hell would I have guitar and bass? Guitar and drums. Why would I? This is something I do. This is my first, my basic drum track. So that's the first thing I recorded. That's where the song began. And yeah, it's something I do. I don't know. I can't justify it in any way. And then I added this second and again, these are drum tracks from the drum machine in the M-Audio black box interface. And this is not just any old drum machine kind of thing. And yeah, if you want to know more about that, watch the when I do the video on this audio interface. The drum samples are very high, tweakable, and that's what I have, and I make the best use of it. So again, I played with some automation, volume automation, but I just decided to go throughout the whole song. There's also the twin reverb and the third verse guitar. It uses a lot of guitars in here. Twin reverb. Let's hear that soloed. All right. sure why I'm clipping in the master. I know why. It doesn't really clip during mixdown. It doesn't clip. All right. So, and I added the bass right there because that's my next point. So certain things that I want to go through, and then I'm going to weave Airwindows into it, and then focus entirely on Airwindows. So, in terms of this, accepting my fate, and this is going to be a shoegaze. That's one thing I did, was to texturize, and that's an example of the texturization, the plug-in automation. And the other thing was to, now one problem with using drum machine tracks is obviously, and especially in a mix like this, they just finally they tend to get buried. The drums just tend to get buried, so that the drum beat is more or less implied by everything else around it, and so the vocals are kind of not perfectly in rhythm. I'm playing loose with the vocals, the phrasing, and so there are just, I found there were certain moments where my brain is missing the beat, and no, so now it's a shoegaze song, so it's not so much an issue. It's actually kind of cool that there are moments where you kind of lose your bearings. Oh, and then there it is again. It's fine, but one thing I did do was to, I thought, well, I can really ramp up the bass and just have that bass just thumping through there, just constantly poking through, and as a that's what bass is. One thing a bass is supposed to, it's a rhythm instrument, and so have the bass there to what's the word I'm looking for, to keep the time, as a time reference, a backbone. I want a shoegaze song, not a jellyfish, right? It's like putting a backbone in the jellyfish. Does that make sense? I feel like I'm kind of a Tom Waits guy, and he had this guitarist, Mark Ribot, great guitar player. He played the solo on Clap Hands, one of my favorite guitar solos of all time, and I heard there was an anecdote where I think it was Mark Ribot. I think it was about that solo, and he was. It's a real weird, angular, weird solo, and they were struggling with it, and I think Tom Waits finally said, yeah, play it like a plumber wearing a tutu. Sometimes it's like, yeah, the bass is like, I'm putting a backbone in a jellyfish. Okay. I shouldn't, meandering digressions. Okay. Focus. All right. So yeah, I wanted to put some time reinforcement in there. And so I also, all right. So I did that by really bringing the bass up, making the bass punch through, but hopefully not annoyingly so. And the rhythm guitar tracks, I really just applied some extra compression. And so the reason I'm mentioning this is there's not just Airwindows, it's also, I'm trying to show people how to use Cakewalk as well. Sorry. residual coughing here. Okay, so for example, so for the bass, I'm going to go into my Pro channel. And okay, so I didn't remove, I'm not using, this compressor is not on. Instead, I chose to use this one, a PC2A leveler. This is a compressor limiter, and it had, look at these gain stages. I mean, it looks like, you know, this is all analog stuff, right? It's digital, but, you know, this +4, +10, this is dBFS. It's all like throwback to, you know, analog gear and like professional grade analog gear. But anyways, it is, this is something that you can use in the Pro channel strip and Cakewalk to really, you really want something to punch through. You got gain and peak reduction. These chicken head knobs. It's really cool interface with the view meter. I really like it. And limit or compressor switch. I'm not a limiter guy. I've got one thing that I use as a limiter, and I use it very sparingly because I just don't like what limiters do. And I just use it as minimally as I, only when I have to, and only as minimally as I possibly can. And but that's not what I use this for. I use this to really bring that like a battering ram, just constantly punching through the wall of sound, as it were. And I did the same, used the same thing with the rhythm guitar tracks, the tracks that are dun, 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 right? Just to reinforce the tempo and the beat. All right, so that's enough about that. And now let's get into Airwindows. So let me go ahead into console view here, and where we can see all the plugins at once. And as you can see, the pale yellow means that all these tracks have been frozen. I can't tweak, oh, except I didn't freeze that one, but it's just not necessary for that one. All right, so you can see at a glance, Airwindows, lots of Airwindows. Lots of Airwindows. In the mastering file, all Airwindows. And that was a conscious decision this time. As you can see, I applied my mastering compression in the mix. This is something that this is the way I work. This is my workflow, and I pay for it by having for things like this. I have to, with a bigger mix, with a lot of plugins, I got to freeze tracks so that for playback, and occasionally I have to just disable the effects track in the master bus just to be able to do playback. But I have reasons why I like to do it this way. This is TDR Kotelnikov. TDR is a wonderful. They've got 6 or 7 just really wonderful plugins that are touted all over YouTube, rightfully so. I think they're probably the best free plugins out there, and in particular, Nova is just like 12 plugins in one. It's just amazing, Nova, and it's here, right? But this is their mastering plugin, Kotelnikov. It's got some good I always use one of these 4 presets, usually tight or punchy. Some punchy, and it's kind of like you don't have to tweak it much. I don't tweak it much. I tweak the output gain, sometimes the makeup gain, sometimes the ratio, but it's just a real good go-to plugin. You don't have to squirrel around with it. Anyway, why am I on Kotelnikov? Yeah, because I did it. So that's why I don't have any compression in the mastering is just, you know, real just touch up. I do most of the mastering before I mix down. It's my workflow. That's why I like to do it. This is my limiter. It's also a saturation compression. Dynamics saturation limiter. That's it. Recovery is a subtle thing. I don't mess with it much. But I will occasionally just... The setting I most use is this is Ferric TDS MK Mark II. Gentle leveling is the setting I mostly use for, and I put it after the mastering compressor. I put it at the end as a limiter, that has color. I don't mind what I usually like what it does, and I often, even if I don't like it, I don't mind it. And if I do mind it, then I'll just I'll dial dynamics and saturation all the way down, and I'll get limiter. I'll put it on default, and I'll just take the limiter as far down as I can go. All right. So anyway, Airwindows. 2 vinyl. Some of these blurbs I'm going to read, not all of them. I don't want to talk about 2 vinyl except to say that, as the name implies, it's there to emulate the sound of vinyl. But there's a hell of a lot more going on to it than that. And, you know, if you read what he has to say about it, this is one of those where I really don't understand it. He seems to think it has a darkening effect. And to me, it's the opposite. To me, it has a brightening effect. It adds high trebles to the point where I have to use another one of his plugins called Slew 2 to kind of shave them off, to tame them. This setting right here, Grooveware. Look at how he describes what he does here. But that's nothing compared to the next control, Grooveware. This one analyzes the virtual groove of the LP, the vinyl, and then sets up an imaginary stylus. It analyzes the virtual groove and then sets up an imaginary stylus going down that groove and gives it a tiny bit of inertia. It's more Slew Mojo and not tied to any particular frequency. It doesn't even know what a frequency is. I don't know what he just... Really, I don't know what that means. How does a plugin know what a frequency is or not know what a frequency is? What does he mean by that? I think I know what he means by it, but it's just a really interesting way of putting it, whatever he's saying. And but then I take it he's dealing with math. You know, it's like in the abstract world of mathematics, how do you set up an imaginary stylus and then give it a tiny bit of inertia? Yeah, anyway, I love reading this stuff. You can shut it off entirely or turn it up, and you can combine it with the acceleration limiter to get pretty much any vinyl LP high-end you want. So he acknowledges that it does add high-end, but he also talks about how it's got a darkening. You see? It's not all darken. In fact, Grooveware is very much its own thing distortion-wise. Yeah, so I've got that first. You know, order matters. You know, if you've ever done pedal boards, you know this. Or, you know, sequence of effects matters, you know. And there are general guidelines to that, but, you know, it's all up to taste. Mostly up to taste. TDR Nova, that's a dynamic EQ. It's wonderful. I use it for, I don't fully exploit it. I'm still learning it. But 4-band dynamic, so that's what it looks like. And I've got, I did use some sidechain. I did sidechain a few tracks into this plugin in the master bus. I sidechained the vocals into it. Not because I really know what I'm doing. But I tried it and I thought it's not really, I liked what it did, so I just did it. All right, so Relife is an excellent exciter plugin. Shape is the main control. Listen, AV it. Kind of reins things in. The mix can kind of have, if the mix sounds boxy or cardboardy in any way, it just kind of takes that, or woolly, it kind of takes that wool out and the boxiness out and focuses the sound. You lose a little bit of power with it, but you gain clarity. This mix has plenty of power, so I've got no problem sacrificing that little bit of power. Back to Airwindows, 2-tape. Let's read about it. Here's 2-tape 6. Now there's 2-tape 7. There's still things I want simplification, but this is all things you wanted. I don't know if I really want to read through the whole thing. Now this is not one that I want to read all the way through, but this is just, if you want tape saturation, if you want the sound of a tape machine, I mean, look at these controls: input, soften, head bump, flutter, and tape 7 has even more controls to simulate a real tape machine from the old days. So you can have wow and flutter, and he's even got, other things with bias controls. He's got some plugins that are, he's got bias and anti-bias plugins, right? So, if you know anything about analog tape, you might know about biasing. It's like, this is, right, so we're going to talk about, I'm not going to get into that quite yet, but this is all about non-linearity, and he just does things in a different way. This is not your typical tape saturation plugin at all. And, if you overdo it, it's just, you don't want to overdo it. It's a completely different animal from your typical tape saturation tape emulator plugin. What I'll do is I'm surprised I have that in the master bus, because I also have it in what am I doing? I also have it in one of my buses, right? But I saw fit to stick it into the master bus. Why? To what extent? Dry wet, it's all the way. Damn, I'm gonna A/B that. So let me just unsolo everything. And let's listen to the whole kit and caboodle. Go back to the beginning. Okay, you can see me A-Bing here, so it's bypassed. hear how it brings that bass out? You know, and that's in the master bus. It's not like that's not deliberately applied. I don't think that's why I put it in there, but can you hear how it brings the bass out? I didn't even really tweak it all that much either. What was going through my mind? I didn't tweak it at all. That might have been something that I forgot. You know, so it's a good thing I'm going back through here, because I might need to tweak that, but I'm not going to do it now. Okay, Kotelnikov, Airwindows, Console LA Bus. Let's read through this one. This is a good blurb to read through. Console LA Bus is the Airwindows take on the Quad 8 console. APIs and Neves and MCI, oh my. Well, Console LA emulates the most incredible console you've never heard of. This thing was the sound of LA in the 70s. It's on the back cover of Steely Dan records. It's been seen in Tom Scholz's basement. And it's heard even on classic 70s LA and Hollywood and San Francisco records it didn't make. Because it's the production model of a whole lineage of West Coast custom recording consoles with similar designs and circuitry. And you can still get them, apparently. The company lives, but I don't know where or for how much or how, as there's no sign of prices or any way to get them. There's none on Reverb. Vintage King doesn't have any. Good luck even finding channel strips. Meet the Quad 8. This sound echoes through the 70s. Tons of Steely Dan, tons of Zappa, Grateful Dead, Neil Young, Joni Mitchell. That's not even counting the wilder sightings, like when people figured this console mixed The Wall, or hearing it on Yes's Relayer album. The thing is, this was the big production console before the days of Neve and API and SSL. Quad 8 were the first to go into production and come up with a recording console that you could just buy, set up, and use. Before them, you had to build your own. Quad 8 are, since the website says they can still make you gear, supplying the film industry, and it shows. These desks are amazing at making movies for your ears. In the Zappa phrase, on the Hot Rats album, which was done at the Whitney Studios in Glendale the year before they got a Neve, so that album was likely also Quad 8 or a kindred West Coast console. Console LA, like Console MC before it, is a bit of a different approach to emulating these great old dinosaurs. Some still things you could conceivably find and have, some forever lost. The thing is, this is the nearest thing to custom point-to-point wiring of discrete transistors. On top of that, the Quad 8 ran a higher supply voltage than anybody, negative 28 to positive 28 volts, for enormous energy and headroom. He talks a lot about energy. And it took me a while to understand what he means when he talks about energy. Okay, he doesn't just talk about dynamics and the typical things, the things that you normally hear, the terms that you normally hear bandied about. Looking into the microphone again, like it's a camera. He talks about energy, applying a bit of inertia to the virtual needle. And as you get into these plugins and learn what they're about, you'll learn to understand what he's talking about. For enormous energy and headroom, the way to get these sounds is not layer upon layer of digital emulation. So he's always on about, this is not your typical digital emulation. I'm not emulating things with tons and tons of algorithms and code. He's constantly stressing his minimalism. Right? Not layer upon layer of digital emulation, but trying to get the behaviors right with minimal atypical algorithms. Only then can you get the energy and sonority of the real Quad 8. The filtering is a whole other thing from the MCI. No mid-peak here. The slopes are more gradual, but you can cut the hell out of the mids, and the deeper into the 70s we got, the deeper the mid-range cuts became. What I've done with Console LA is try to make the simplest, most approachable console system that can get the widest range of sounds as heard on these records and reward you when you pursue music recording in the old school human way. If I'm going to read one blurb, one little mini essay, this is the one to give you the idea of what this guy is about. This doubtless won't be the last, but it might just end up being my favorite. I hope you like Console LA. I love Console LA. Console LA is, there's a lot of things I don't like about the digital audio world. This is what I have to work with. I'm grateful for it, but there's things I don't like about it. And this plugin really, it takes the edge off. Let's say be it. Let's see. Do I want to go back? Yeah, I'll go back to the beginning. Bypassed. Alright. And if you're not hearing much of a difference, then maybe this is not up your alley. I suppose it's a subtle difference, but it's not subtle at all to me. And you know what? Just for the sake of demonstration, I'm gonna put it on console 0. And I don't want to keep going back to the beginning, so I'm going to hang on. Options. Okay, that way it doesn't keep going back to the beginning. All right, so here's console 0. As I scatter my seed down an almost stolen dream, and the voice comes tumbling from the top of the tree. I'm actually thinking I might change it to console 0. It just it takes that much more of that digital edge off. And another good blurb to read. Why not? Console 0 bus. Okay, the bus is a radical minimalist console system. If the weirdness of Airwindows console systems tends to throw you, it's probably good to skip this one. You'll either hear what it's about or you won't. This is sort of an extreme position of a line of inquiry that not everybody buys into. It's really quite clear what's going on and why, but people disagree very intensely on whether it matters. I love the way this guy writes. Rather than make allowances, I thought I'd push it to the most radical extreme possible to see what happened. Meet console 0. There will probably never be anything that goes farther in this direction. Not in the purely digital domain anyway. Not as free open source plugins that everyone can have. It's easy to get external hardware to do some of these things, but that's costly. Console 0 can be used by everybody. If that is, you can deal with the demands it makes. A little bit of a challenging tone there. And he toots his own horn a fair bit, but not in a way that's off-putting or arrogant in any way. if you can deal with the demands it makes. Console 0 is the Airwindows console concept, crossed with the bit shift gain concept and pushed literally as far as it can possibly go. It has built-in gain and pan, kinda. It has aliasing suppression filtering, kinda. And it does the saturate on channels and then anti-saturate on the bus, kinda. Everything is sacrificed to the mantissa gods. The idea is, with many analog to digital converters, with even fairly humble ones, you can get quite a lot out of them if you just pass the audio straight through. Analog to digital, straight to analog again. Often it'll capture a really good sound. It all goes to hell when you start trying to work with it in the box. You know, you learn stuff from this guy. And that's what he says is true. I know something about that. What he just said. Even on a system like Console 8, with no other processing, there might be hundreds of mathematical operations on every channel, thousands. Things like sine and arc sine functions do a lot of processing to be accurate. Biquad filters can get you nice, accurate filtering, but require lots of math operations to function. The stuff modern mixed topologies get up to could be tens of thousands of calculations per sample, per channel, on the way to the final mix. We take this for granted, and nobody tries to make the opposite approach work. I told you, contrarian. He's a contrarian. I'm a contrarian by nature. So I just like this right off the bat. Nobody tries to make the opposite approach work, certainly not while including filtering and analog emulation. Console 0 does maybe 8 math operations per sample, per channel, between input and the final mix output that touch the mantissa of the input values, including the actual mix, including the console saturation, anti-saturation system, including the aliasing suppression filtering. 8, if I remember correctly, for the entire chain. How? By leaning on bit shifting to an insane, excessive degree. And this is where I start to lose the plot. But anyway, it's a giant trade-off. All level and pan is done with built-in bit shift pan, even on the bus, and you shouldn't touch it. But why not? The point is that it doesn't alter any mantissas. That is mixing in 6 dB increments. 3 if you count moving stuff 1 notch to the side to make it quieter. The filtering is strictly simple averaging. 1 operation and 1 bit shift to get back to the original gain. The bit shift doesn't touch the tone. The console system is simplified so much that it's just 1 calculation and another bit shift. Everything is traded off for minimalism. The saturation produces slightly more harmonics than something like Purist Console, but almost without calculation. You get a mix together in Console 0 through arrangement, through broad strokes. You cannot fuss with it. It's almost LCR panning, except there are obvious left center and right center points included and a range of pannings nearer the edges. All these points sound exactly like unprocessed raw digital audio. All of them pass through the unaltered mantissa from the input sample. The entire mix, with all its levels and pannings, puts through every single track as if it was the untouched raw signal without even a gain change. Because there is not a single mantissa change to any track on any channel going into the console processing. This may mean nothing to you. If you got here and that's you, thank you for the great patience. And does it sound good? I love this guy. All of this is in pursuit of a particular kind of sound, very unlike typical DAW sound. Do you hear that in my example? Do you hear it if you attempt a Console 0 mix? If you hear nothing unusual, move on. This is not for you. You gotta love this guy. It's a gentle nudging. It's not, he really is, he's not being snarky. He's being sincere. This is not a brusque fuck you. You know, it's like, okay, fair enough. Move on. It's not for you. Some of you are going to lose your minds over how good this can sound. This is for you. And right now I'm kind of losing my mind about it. I kind of go to console LA as a default now, but and I wavered for like a good hour on whether to use this in the master file. I decided not to because there was a dB cut. There was it just took too much out. But now I'm thinking that it belongs here it belongs in this bus, in this mix down here, and then it'll work. All right, so I'm glad I'm doing this. Wait, it gets worse. I love this guy. You have to run 96 this time, 192, okay, if you want extended highs. Okay, now this is another theme that you'll find. He likes 96K, and most guys will tell you for good reason that for most purposes it really doesn't matter. You're perfectly covered with 48K 24-bit. Really, and you are. But apparently for this guy and some of his tools, if you want optimal results, you need to run in 96. I don't run in 96K because I don't have the disk space for it. I can't afford the disk space for it. I'd go through a terabyte in a matter of a couple of months. Because Cakewalk, I think I do endless takes and delete, but they all get saved. It doesn't really delete them. Anyway. If you're at 44.1K, the averaging will still work. It will be real dark. Sorry. That's okay, Chris. That means some people could do mixes at 44.1K with some of the desirable qualities we're seeking here, just so long as it's meant to be dark. Plenty of genres that can do that. There are plenty of genres that can do that. But you should be running 96K. These plugins are so lightweight, it's hard to even express how light they are. Again, 8 operations across the entire mix bus, not thousands or hundreds of thousands per sample. That's from input to mix output. That will stand up to a lot of tracks, and the other secret is Console Zero loves high track counts. The more stuff you have layered, the more freedom you have to do subtle loudness adjustments. A 3 decibel nudge on one layer of one track made of 4 layers means the total loudness of those doubles is the same as adjusting all of them by 0.75 dB. It will nudge one of the layers sideways in the stereo picture, and the task becomes managing aggregates of tracks, thinking only of the big picture, letting some stuff be buried in the mix because you simply can't nudge it up in volume to balance. Yeah, that last consideration is why I didn't use it in the mastering stage. There was some stuff that was getting buried. I didn't want it buried. But I'm going to reconsider. And it can all come together and work better than you'd ever imagine, and quicker, and sound like life, not like a DAW. Yes. Okay, so I'm glad that I'm picking the right blurbs to read through. I wanted to pick the ones that really get across the essence of what you're dealing with Airwindows. Sound like life, not like a DAW. And this is the holy grail for me. This is my main focus is to sound as much as possible not like a DAW. That's why I'm really into Airwindows, and Airwindows has helped me go a long way in that quest. But then I listened to my new friend Soundacre Studio, and Wyndham, and his song, Feed the Lions. Feeding the Lions or Feed the Lions. And I was convinced that that was tracked to tape, but he got back to me. No, that was done in Cubase. Jeez. So, yeah. Josh, I need to, I got questions for you, man. All right, so, but, it sound like life, not like a DAW. Either this will work for you or it absolutely won't. Either to blow away anything you've tried or completely frustrate you. That's another thing that he comes up again and again. He stresses that his approach is very polarizing, apparently. A lot of it is you love it or hate it. It's useful or it's not. You get it or you don't. This one's going to be polarizing. It goes so far in the directions I try to achieve that I'm certain it'll blow some of you away and it's going to make other people really mad. What price is an untouched mantissa? Excuse me. This cough. How much can you hear the inevitable digital erosion of overprocessing? And just how little processing can you do in a mix and still have a mix at all? Console 0, if you dare. Smiley face. I will return to more accessible stuff, analog emulations, etc. now. There will be no beating Console 0 for what it does. Again, that it's not arrogance, though. It's just matter of fact. It's the truth. Yeah, I really appreciate that kind of statement. He's speaking with authority. There will be no beating Console 0 for what it does. Yeah, I'm a language guy. It's very carefully phrased. The rest is doing interesting tone colors, which I promise I'll bring you. But if this is your jam, you're done. I love it. You know what? Yeah, I think I'm sold. I'm switching from Console LA to Console 0 on this one. There won't be any better from me or anybody else. It will beat many external summing buses. Console 0 is yours now. And that's the other beautiful thing. It's yours. There it is. It's yours. No strings. Yeah, so let's go back and A-B these again. Well, okay, CPU is glitching a bit. Yeah, sorry, but at least it's doable. I'm almost done here. Anyway, but let's go back and so again, AB, Console 0 bus, and then back to LA. Whoops. Okay, I want to go back to that gut punch right there. That which I carefully crafted with my developing arrangement skills and conspicuously did not repeat. Where is it? There it is. I want to hear what Console 0 does with that, if it affects it. There it is. Now I want that. Let me see. Back into options. On stop. Rewind to marker. Okay. to console 0. No problems. Yeah, it's just it's just taking off Digital Edge, and there's probably a little bit of a dB cut, but that's fine, right? That's fine at this stage. It's fine. Console 0 it is, and we're peaking at minus 0.3 instead of 0.0.
Walk swiftly,
Console 0 it is. So now I'm gonna pause again. It's too bad I've gotta keep one eyeball on OBS to make sure it doesn't spontaneously unpause me. That's a really annoying bug. Okay, I'm gonna pause and I'm gonna mix this down again and stick it into the master file before I switch over to the master file and round this out with then we're gonna like get into some more of his plugins that I use constantly, including the most important one, in my opinion, maybe the most important one, which is called what is it called? I forget. All right, discontinuity. All right, back in a flash. Oh, by the way, yeah, I might as well throw this in. If you're interested in Cakewalk, this is the best way to mix down in Cakewalk. It's been years since I worked with other DAWs. The last one that I worked with to any extent was, I think, Nuendo. And so I've just been using, since I got back into this half a year ago, roughly, I've just been using Cakewalk. And here, so you see this green slider up here. This is a range selector, right? This is so if I started my mix down now, it would mix down track 3 only in the range of this green slider. All right, so here's the best way to prepare your mix down in Cakewalk. Okay, so first, here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to click anywhere just to get that green slider out of there. Click anywhere in here anywhere. Okay, and then go to start. And then I'm going to click on track number 1 in track 1. Now you see that the green slider appeared, and it automatically went all the way to the farthest automation point right there. Okay, actually a little further. It went right there, went right to the end. So you may or may not want to adjust that before mix down, but that's what it kind of defaults. It just goes right to the very end. All right, and that's what I want in this case. So then, yeah, select track 1 and then scroll down to the last track and shift, select. And now we're all prepped for mix down, file, export, audio. Or does the world dream me? 2.0, re-level 3. I don't really, same way. I'm pretty confident about this change. So, source category, entire mix. Dithering, power 3, 4816. I run 4816, not 24. Maybe I should run 24. But my Blue Yeti is 4816. This microphone is 4816. I don't fuss too much over. Is that your secret, Josh? Are you doing like 96K, 32 point floating point? bit? Is that what you're doing? I gotta find out. And then export, and it'll start the mix down. Overwrite, yes. Okay, and there's the right up here. Can you see that? Can you see my cursor? You can't see my cursor, can you? Oh, I have to change that. You can't see my cursor. You can see up right next to my studio cam, you can see the mixing down audio window right there. And I'm going to pause it during the mix down. I'll be right back. All right, so I'm back. Export audio successfully completed. Open export location. And there that is. Let me see. Which one is it now? Must be this one. Properties. Timestamp. 4:14 a.m. Yep, that's the one. Okay, so I don't really need that anymore. All right. So into the save that. And window master. Now, something I failed to consider. Now, I'm gonna have to probably do some tweaking in the Airwindows plugins here to compensate for the alteration from console LA to console 0. Reason for that is that let's just get into this right away. So if I play this, this is the I overwrote this just now. So how does that work? Still play? Okay, so before I replace this with the new mix down, it's gonna go. I'm gonna go through these plugins with this. This is what I did. So the first thing I'm going to do is bypass all of the plugins, and here's what it sounds like. Enable. You might have noticed something different right off the bat there. Dude, what the fuck is that? I know, right? That is not discontinuity. Gonna get to discontinuity. Not Stonefire. Gonna get to Stonefire. That is Creature. Creature is responsible for that thing that happens there at the beginning. It's like that weird synthy kind of bass sound that kind of like gets sucked up into the mix at the very end of the intro, which it's reacting to a plugin automation that I did with Finisher Micro. It's responding to that. So that plugin automation triggered this response from Creature. What is Creature? Creature is a soft slew saturator, a new class of noise changer. So here, this is another blurb worth reading through. So here's something new. Didn't exist before, even I didn't have it. Creature is a soft slew saturator. It's a way of working with applying a sine function to slew clipping. In fact, it applies an unbounded sine function, so it might be technically considered a slew wave folder. Because that's what everybody needed, was a slew wave folder. Now he's being humorous. I love Chris. I love his writing. How useful, nerdy, and pointless. Not so much. I'm going to be self-deprecating, but not really. Listen to this little monster. Creature is up to 32 or more at high sample rates. Soft slew saturators stacked up like the poles of a filter. It acts like a distortion, except it's not a distortion. It acts like a filter, but it's even less of a filter. Its interaction with sample rate is really strange. Has to scale up with the square root of the sample rate multiplier. Sounds good. And what creature really does is roar. As you keep adding depth, that's the depth knob, the gain and the thunder increase unreasonably. The total force on tap is pretty ridiculous, and it keeps getting harder to control as you turn it up. There's an INV control, here INV/wet, that can give you a really interesting cancellation that acts like a high pass-ish, but not like any high pass you've ever heard. Using it in phase in wet mode unleashes a monstrous overdrive with humongous bass that refuses to lose weight, even at impossibly high gains. Real interesting on drum rooms. There is no overdrive, there is no EQ, there is no high pass. It's just creature, which is very much its own beast. It's also a very, very simple algorithm. Isn't that so often the way? So especially at low depth settings, all this monstrousness can be yours for almost no CPU. I'll be finding ways to put this to use, but as always, you've got it fresh from the plug-in forges. Be careful and have fun with your new creature. So as is so often the case, I just, stuck it in to see what would happen. This is not one of my go-to plugins. This is one of those that I just want to fuck around and find out. Stick it in, see what happens. And that's what it did. Right off the bat, that's what it did. And it's cool. And I was crossing my fingers that as playback continued, it wouldn't do other shit that wasn't going to work, and it didn't. If anything, it brought something very subtle to the table throughout the rest of the mix that served my shoegaze surrender purposes. So that's creature. And again, like AB, what that does, it's quite amazing. It sounds like I really know what the hell I'm doing, right? No. That's just serendipity right there. But anyway, let's get on to the important go-to stuff. So we've got Stonefire. That's a go-to. Discontinuity. That's a go-to. Creature. Slew 2. That's a go-to. Purest Warm, go-to. I skip one corner clip, not a go-to, but in this case I chose to use it. Let's see, Purest Warm, okay, and then finally Sweeten, which is becoming a go-to. I think that's going to be a go-to from now on. Let's go through these. I'm going to start with Discontinuity, because it's one that I skipped. These are, in my view, all except for Discontinuity. Well, it's Stonefire also. Stonefire and Discontinuity, both very much mixing plugins as well. I use Discontinuity on individual tracks all the time. And so let's read this blurb. Discontinuity models air under intense loudness. This might be the most important subtle sound effect I've ever done. Air isn't linear. I told you non-linearity is a theme. That's why DAWs don't sound like reality. They are literally too perfect, in that their transients, their sound combining, every aspect of their operation has no error at all. One would assume this would produce perfect sound, but some of us have never shut up about our grievances with it. We just lost a titan of that grievance in Steve Albini, but he's far from alone in that. If you have sounds in air, they sound real even while the air itself distorts them. Much like my recent work with capacitors modulating their values under voltage pressure, up to 80% in some cases, air modulates the speed of sound under air pressure. This makes it incredibly obvious and intense crackles on loud sounds like rocket takeoffs. But many of us have heard this crackle at things like rock concerts, especially in a really live room like a hockey rink. Discontinuity simply adds that distortion at loudnesses from 70 to 140 dB. That's all it does. And at loudnesses below 110 dB or so, it's quite subtle. But I've found use for it as quiet as 71 dB, the voice tracks on my last two videos. I won't say it's correct and accurate at 140 decibels. I include that because people will enjoy it so much, but I'm not using it that much. I just have to because people will enjoy it, and because it's impossible not to hear when cranked that high. How to use discontinuity. At any point in the mix where there's a sound, apply it so that the loudest possible sound, typically 0 decibels or clipping, matches the loudness you need. If your sound peaks at 10 decibels quieter than clipping and the sound needs to seem like it's 102 decibels, set discontinuity to 112 decibels. And listen. There will be an obvious sweet spot where it starts to seem exactly right, and you can dial in the apparent loudness as if it was a tone or EQ move. Okay? Okay? Discontinuity does its frequency modulation using sample buffers. For that reason, it permanently has a bit of latency, and it's never quite the same latency because it's frequency modulated by the track it's on. For that reason, you could put it on every track and drum mic as long as you give up the idea of phase coherence. Very contrarian. It's better on minimally mic'd things or possibly submixes, and on distinct sounds that don't need to keep perfect phase alignment with each other. Depending on who you are and what you've dreamed of being able to make sound do, you might immediately not care about any of that and immediately start using it on everything and never stop. That's yours truly. That's me. It's like when I invented console, only more so. The interesting thing is how useful I find the quiet, subtle settings when getting a mix to gel and come alive like it's a real sonic event happening. I can set very delicate and quiet against super loud and have them all just work. Discontinuity is a fundamental part of Console X. That's a big project he's working on, which I'm still working on. I hope you like getting a little piece of the mixing revolution early so you can learn about it. Smiley face. All right. So how can I put this simply in my terms? And again, it's a real subtle thing. And even me with my bum ear, I can hear it. It's just kind of like one of those things that's more felt than heard. It's felt. It's you're using a tube amp, emulator plugin, whatever. This discontinuity plugin makes it sound that much more, it makes it feel that much more like the real thing. Okay, that's one application that I find it very useful for. It just takes your tube amp emulator to a new level. I think it's the best thing you could possibly find in the digital world to just bring it that much closer to the feeling of real tube fire. I always like compare, when I used to have a Fender Vibrolux, it was like, what is it? Yeah, twin 10-inch speaker in a Vibrolux. And it's late at night. I used to set that thing really quiet as I could get it and just strum and play soundscapes back when I was in that sort of thing. And it's just like sitting in front of a campfire late at night as you can barely see the flames just flickering above the embers. That's what a real tube amp feels like. And this plugin just brings you closer to that. Although in this case we're talking about like tube amp at volume. Same thing though. Same feeling. It's not really about how loud it is. It's something else. Although the focus obviously is on loudness in real air, but I don't know. I'm not really improving on his explanation, am I? But again, there's a non-linearity. So it throws a wrench into the perfectly linear mathematical workings of the DAW, and it just shakes it up and makes it. It gives it a live feeling. The best way I can put it. And occasionally I'll throw it right on the master bus, or in this case, right in the mastering stage. And I have it set really low to 73.5. But just to give you a feeling for what it does, I'm gonna play back and crank it up. And so here we go. Okay, so 105 is like where it defaults, I think. Yeah. So obviously, when he said you enjoy it at higher settings, that's obviously not for an entire mix. What he's talking about is, again, like applying it to a tube amp emulator. Yeah, you can get extreme with it, and it sounds good. The sweet spot here starts to happen around 105, and bring me my sugar cane wine, fruit blankets, falls to the vine. Now my spirits climb out like a new blood stain. I could go with like 96, but I'm trying to be just a hint. I just want a hint. It just gives it a kind of a hairy live sound. Just a touch. I had it at 73.5, right? Yeah. Okay. Didn't I have it? Okay, 73.5. I'm kind of autistic with numbers. Yeah. That's what discontinuity does. I use it all the time. It just makes things sound more natural. In a nutshell. Stonefire. Yeah, it's going to be a long one, but it has to be to do this justice. And this is for people that are serious about this shit, If there's only a handful of you out there that are ever going to find it, this is for you. But it's important. Stonefire is the non-EQ EQ designed for Console X. There's a reason people have never turned to using Kalman filters for audio purposes. I've never heard of a Kalman filter. Here we go. They're tricky little buggers, unpredictable, with a filter slope that makes no sense at all. They'll take the crossover point and bounce it around wildly. They'll throw in weird gatey behaviors. They'll turn what's supposed to be a smooth filtered sound into an edgy growl and sputter. They're meant to pull real data out of a pile of noise, not to take real audio and give you anything sensible. Nobody would want a Kalman filter for audio purposes. Hence, that's why he's doing it. Stonefire uses two different kinds of Kalman filters for audio as crossovers. The top crossover is the same as what's in Air 3. The bottom crossover comes with a range control, even though that won't give you a frequency, and is the same as what's in Kalman. And when used properly, Stonefire gives you unprecedented levels of tonal control over the texture and presentation of your sound in a way that almost doesn't even have to do with frequency. There's 3 bands plus the range control, air, fire, and stone. Each can be cut back to 0 or boosted. Fire and stone match, while air has a lot more gain on tap, but will match from 0.5 down to 0.0. If you cut them back 0, you'll get the weird Kalman behavior, but it'll help you set the range control appropriately. You can set it so stone covers the lowest lows, never just those. It will always do other stuff too, or up to the high mids and lower treble. Then, if you keep everything balanced and make smaller adjustments, the secret of the Kalman filter emerges. You have to use it as a crossover and let it apply its incredibly strong character to texture, not frequency. It utterly fails to be a filter, but it's an extraordinary texture shaper. And it's what I'm going to be building the upcoming Console X system around. This is revolutionary stuff, man. It really, really is. And when Console X comes out, I don't care what I have to pay for it. If I have to, I think there's some hardware involved. I'm getting it, whatever it is. Use the air control like you would in Air 3. That's another plugin. You can cut back the super highs while seeming to not affect the brightness at all, with a strikingly natural effect. Or boost it to bring that sparkly aura and light up the sound. It's a custom algorithm that deals with high sample rates by just ramping up the boost. Treat it with respect, but it's there to serve your needs for a glitter or lack of same. Use the fire control like it was an attitude knob, as much as a mid-range. That's a very specific reference. I used to have some overdrive pedals that had attitude knobs. One of them was a Voodoo Labs, I believe. Had an attitude knob. I think that was Voodoo Labs. And then back in my Mesa Boogie rack mount Mesa Boogie twin speaker cab days, I think the Mesa Boogies had attitude knobs. I associate that with Mesa Boogie anyway. Attitude. It's so intelligent. Use it like it was an attitude knob, as much as a mid-range. You can get a lot of wildness out of this one with careful settings of range. Between fire and stone, only one can be louder. It's a crossover. If you're boosting fire, that means you want your sound to command attention. So what that means is, again, my mouse pointer is not showing up for you. I gotta change that in the settings, but here, here's what that means. In case you're obtuse like I am. Look here. Fire is turned down to 40.43. Stone is turned up to 0.57. Fire is turned down 0.07. Stone is turned up 0.07. I'm a Libra. That's the Libra in me. Yeah. Doug Stanhope. Okay. That's what that means. Don't do fire and stone the same way at once. Or if you turn fire up, turn stone down. And he's right. That's the way it works. So, Okay. Where were we? Yeah, if you're boosting fire, that means you want your sound to command attention. He's absolutely right. These blurbs are so on point. He's right. He's right about everything. Although the darkness thing and the vinyl plugin, I don't totally get yet. But okay, use the stone control like it's the bedrock of your sound. Yes. If you lean entirely on it and kill all the fire, you'll get a monumentally heavy, sputtering, gatey foundation that zeroes in on the lowest lows, but also tries to put backbone behind anything it thinks is heavy and powerful. This includes lower mid-range. Cutting it can control unwieldy bass, but adding it isn't the same as adding a bass boost. It'll zero in on things like kick weight and try to present them with unnatural isolation. The secret to adding weight with the stone control is to let it not seem to be that much of a boost. You can transform the feel of a sound well before you hear added bass. You can dial the range up and use the same effect up into the mid-range for an intensely and solid punchy character anywhere a sound seems flimsy. God help you if you try to measure this thing with plug-in doctor or span. I don't even have any idea what will happen. It's all made out of Kalman filters, which are not for use with audio, except when they are. Enjoy the new tone shaping. If it's too ugly, use way less. See how it treats you. Yeah. So, it took me a good hour to get this the way I wanted it. So, yeah, air. And this could change when I put in the new mix down. Yeah. Well, let's A/B it. Let's see here. That was the first one, right? Right. Okay. So. Listen to the bass. Falls to the now my spirit's crying out like bypass. As I scatter my seed down. So in this case, I read those. I read that blurb very, very carefully, and I followed his instructions to the letter as best I could, and I used it. Yeah, that's what I used it for. I used it to bring that bass out like a battering ram. And I used air to bring out more presence in the vocals, which I had to compensate for with. So let's move on. We've done Creature. Slew 2. So Slew 2 is partially a compensation for the air setting in Stonefire. Let's read about Slew 2. Slew 2 works like a de-esser or acceleration limiter, controls extreme highs. I find this really useful. 100 hour and 59 minutes. Damn. Okay. Onward. Slew 2 works like a de-esser or acceleration limiter, controls extreme highs. Yeah, so it's very useful for reining in, shaving off digital harshness, which is a problem for me. Apparently not a problem for Josh down at Sound Acres. I'm not picking on you, Josh. I mean it. Seriously. This plugin is just the anti-aliasing technology I was experimenting with in 2010 applied to Slew, my simple Slew clipper. I thought it was going to make the slightly grungy Slew smoother. Slew is a clipper and can be expected to have clipper-like qualities. that anti-aliasing code was a bit odd. It's possible I made a mistake somewhere. If so, I'm keeping it, and now what I admitted is out for VST also and free to all. Okay, SLU 2 doesn't act anything like SLU. What it does is it puts a particular behavior on the extreme highs, set to an intermediate value. It's an acceleration limiter, cranked all the way up. Well, check out the video. Blah. Okay, it behaves like one of the nodes in average. Okay, yeah, this is not, let me see. He talks about things like the Nyquist limit. It gets really technical sometimes. People are using this for de-essers, and it's pretty much ideal for any sound that must not be overwhelming in the super highs. The peculiar character of the roll-off means it's suitable for almost anything because it won't affect lower treble. And the fact that it's really a clipper means that you can use the slider to set a threshold where the harder you push SLU 2, the more it'll refuse to let more brightness through. I've not tried using it as an acceleration limiter on a mastering lathe, but it could probably do that. I guess I'm trying that. I guess I'm doing that. Which also means if you're going for classic analog tone, you can just toss this on the 2 bus and use it just enough to take excess brightness away. SLU 2 is one of the secret weapon plugins I was specifically asked to port to VSTs, and I'm happy to bring it to you all. So it's the control now is called clamping. I've got it set at 0.39. I like odd numbers. I like 3s and 9s. Tesla talked about the 3, the 6, and the 9. Anyway, that's about where I like it right there. But this might change because I swapped out console LA for console 0. And if I A/B it, you're probably not going to hear I hear the difference, but let's see if we can hear the difference on vocals. Bring me my sugar cane wine, fruit black falls to the vine. I just toggled it on and off, If you can't hear the difference, then this really isn't for you. You know, to me, it's a distinct and marked improvement. You know, and but just to show you, to give you an idea, I'll go ahead and crank it. Bring me my sugar cane wine, fruit black falls to the vine. Now my spirit's crying out like a new blood stain as I scatter my seed down an awesome stone drain. And the voice comes tumbling from the top of the tree. You know what? Maybe I'm being too. I was, you know, when I was thinking of another brightness plugin when I set this. Another one where if you drive it to the extreme, it's not good. Smooth. I was thinking of smooth. This one sounds better the more I crank it up. SLU 2. Yeah, it's sure as hell acting like a de-esser. It is, yeah, it's doing that. And it's not really robbing the rest of the mix of anything. Shit. I was treating it like smooth. The smooth plugin. I was treating it with kid gloves like the smooth plugin, but yeah. Well, okay. I'm gonna leave it there for now. And yeah, okay. So that's brightness. That's SLU 2. Purest Warm. Purest Warm adds Well, just, it adds warmth. Purest warm. It's self-explanatory. It's supposed to give you some analog warmth. I was sparing with it because it can it can take away things that I don't want to take away, right? So, but I'll go ahead and play it and crank it. Bring me my sugar cane wine, fruit blackens, falls to the vine. Now my spirit's crying out like a new blood stain as I scatter my seed down an almost stolen drain. And the voice comes to me. It's got, one control for each side of the waveform, and I don't really understand that, so that's why I haven't, I don't really know what I'm doing when it comes to that. I haven't really messed around with it, but now I am. I shouldn't be doing this. I shouldn't be using time in the video for this, but hey, I'm hearing something here, as I tweak. Bring me my sugar cane wine, fruit blackens, falls to the vine. Now my spirit's crying out like a new blood stain. Okay, so here's an example of, I don't know what the hell I'm doing, but I'm hearing something that I like going on. Can't put my finger on it yet, but that's part of my process. I set it very minimally based on, kind of like data on previous engagements. If you know anything about marksmanship, dope. That's dope. That's data on previous engagements. But yeah, I think I'm liking this, so I'm gonna leave it there. But I haven't even put my new mix down in. So let's see, purest warm. Okay. One corner clip. Okay, this is I can't read all these, but it's a limiter basically. It keeps, if you're just barely clipping and you want to stop the thing from clipping, but let's just read the first paragraph or so. A one corner clip works like this, like an ADC clip. I don't know what that is, except it spreads out the onset to clipping over possibly many samples. They converge upon the maximum possible output, which means the front edge of a clip takes on a continuous curve, moving its energy, there's that word again, moving its energy down into lower frequencies where the clippage is less bright and gritty and more brutal and ballsy. Then on departing the clip, the waveform just snaps instantly to the next unclipped value with no attempt to soften. So your wave shaping ends up getting one corner on departing the clip and one rounded onset entering the clip. What this means is you can smash this with bass and it'll remain bassy. Smash it with mid-range and it'll be MIDI. It shapes itself to the needs of your track, the distortion taking on the character of what you're putting in. And that means you can slam stuff absurdly hard enough through this while retaining character. And you can retain size and scale and depth. And so I put this in just to control clipping. And I did it at what I felt was a minor trade-off. But it does things that, in other circumstances I might really want. But just to give you some idea, I'm going to go ahead and let's start playback and crank the input a bit. As you can see, I've cranked it up 5 decibels in the input, and it's still not clipping. Bring me my sugar cane wine, fruit black ales. Falls to the river. Yeah, so it makes it, let's put it simple. It makes it louder without any clipping. But of course, there's consequences for that, and distortion that is it's digital sounding distortion, but digital sounding distortion that might be useful and is, maybe not garbage. Yeah. Anyway. I've just got it used as just to shave off clips. And next we have, almost done. Good. And then sweeten. Sweeten is where you can find super clean second harmonic. I had to go look up what second harmonic actually means. And it's one of those things that I think I used to know way back in the day, but I had to go look it up. By the way, Brave browser, and it's this is one of the good uses to which AI has been put. Let's see, refresh. Audio second harmonic. This is a Brave browser AI assistant answer. Saves me buckets of time. It scours forums and articles and blog posts, and it cobbles together a synopsis, a summary for you. It's very useful. The audio second harmonic, also known as the second harmonic, is an integer multiple of the fundamental frequency of a sound wave in a sound wave. In the context of audio, it is the frequency component that is twice the frequency of the fundamental tone. Straightforward enough. But what does that really mean? It's pleasant. It's pleasant distortion, I think. It's pleasing. It's just pleasing to the ear. It's kind of, I think it's like kind of MSG for the ear. Put it that way. It's ear MSG. Audio MSG. Which is not, MSG gets a bad rap. It's not such a bad thing. I like MSG. You can overdo it, but MSG is awesome. Sweeten. No need to read through the whole thing. It gives you second harmonic. And it does add a little bit of gain, right? And that's the reason I put it at the end, actually, because I had just a tiny bit of headroom left, and with Sweeten I brought it right up to 0.0. Why the hell not? But then why did I have the clipper before it? My own rabbit holes. Yeah, and I often get my wires crossed. Anyway, there's an introduction to Airwindows, and I think it's went on an ungodly length of time, but I kind of think I did it justice. And now, since I've come this far, let's see what happens when I bring in the new mixdown with console 0. Wait a minute. There we go. There it is. Okay. Drag it in. Okay. All right. There we have it. Hang on. All right. Bring this out. There we have it. Okay. This is the new console 0 mixdown. And let's see how it sounds. 2. I'm walking I feel like I'm walking a bit of a tightrope here, because I'm trying to bring analog warmth, but not in your normal analog emulator plug-in way. This is the whole point of Airwindows. But there's always trade-offs. Like, I want brightness and presence at the same time. With real analog and real tape saturate, you get the best of both worlds. And you can't emulate it. Really, not really at the end of the day, but you just get as close as you possibly can to getting the best of both possible worlds. That round warmth with that sweet brightness, like sunshine, I'm willing to settle for even like slightly chilly autumn sunshine. It's a little bit warm when you stand in it, but chilly when you step into the shade. So now I got it set at 50. This is the main thing I'm concerned with, bringing the console zero mix in. What's it going to do with my slew setting? So that's the first thing I'm listening for with what Creature did in the beginning, that bassy synthy thing getting sucked up into the mix, as it were, as it kicks off. Listen to that with slew set 2, so slew 2 maxed out. We're right before, can you see it? It's like it's getting sucked up into a upside down funnel. Right where it goes into the Venturi. Slew 2 it takes something away from that. I'll take slew 2 down to 0. It's very subtle, and I probably shouldn't obsess about it. And I'm not going to take any more time, other than to say that I think the shift over to console 0 was the right call. And it looks like I'm clipping at minus 0.1. And the biggest clips happen at the very beginning. I'm going to put 6 of my eggs in one basket and half a dozen in the other. I'm going to put it at 51 for now. I need to take a break and clear out my head, rest my ears before I make any more decisions. But I think right at the end there, that's a really good way to close out with this, because this is about subtlety, and this slew 2, but right now it's not so subtle, is it? And I have to take into consideration that I'm using these are not even reference headphones, they're not mixing headphones, these are just these are the best for mixing. And I need headphones for mixing because of my hearing impediment. But as much as I need to hear through, I actually need headphones in a way that other people don't. But I got to factor in that I'm hearing. So I've got to play with this slew setting and hear it through other things before I make a decision, right? But anyway, that's Airwindows. The power of Airwindows. This guy is leading a revolution, a quiet revolution in digital audio. And he knows what he's doing. Okay? In a way that few people, in a way that can be said of very few people, in my opinion. And all you got to do is just go to his website and download it and install it, and bam, it's all there at your fingertips. It's a new world. And you can find his channel on YouTube. He's fascinating to watch. He's got this great save. Let me see. He's got this great is he here at my splash page? Stop making this mistake. Oh, you're bitching about the boss of DS1, are you? Okay. I want to return this. Really? Then you don't understand it. Simple as that. You don't know what it's for. Why are you... These kids are fucking great. These kids did Siamese Dream from beginning to end in one take, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so here he is, Airwindows. He's a lot of fun to watch and listen to. Fascinating guy. And look at his backdrop.
Hi, I'm Chris from Airwindows. Little bit more than 4 years ago. Hi, I'm Chris from Airwindows. Today I'm really, really sick. And here we are again. And guess what? I've now figured out what happened to me a little more than 4 years ago. Because it is, in fact, COVID.
Okay, so that's Chris. And I don't know what's going on there behind him. I mean, is it some kind of... Is it... What the hell is that? Some kind of... Is it real? It's like... Yeah, anyway. So you can check him out and sub his YouTube channel and watch him. He's fascinating to watch and listen to. And so I hope that this video does somebody some good. That's all I can say. That's all I can hope. Sorry it's so obscenely long, but I didn't try to make it that way. Just yeah. All right. I got to stop apologizing for that. Yeah. I won't say that either. I'm not going to be an asshole. That's it. Now I'm off for some much needed. I need to take a break and take another nap, and then it's up for Korean Thanksgiving weekend. It's going to be a big one. A bunch of in-laws over here for a sleepover, and boy, these Koreans, man, they like to talk about how other cultures, especially Americans. Oh, Americans eat too much. Jeez, these people. You should see them shovel the food away. And they're always like laughing at me because I can't eat it. Why don't you eat? Like, because I value my longevity. For the same reason I quit drinking. This is going to be my first Korean Thanksgiving as a teetotaler. You know, my in-laws, this is one time a year where they like to get in their cups. And it gets a bit rowdy and raucous. And if things go right, I'm going to document some of that and stick it on this channel. Why not? Local color. Yeah. So I need to get ready for that. I got responsibilities coming. So I'm the man of the house and the host. So that means I got to run off to Costco and a few other places. The Korean version of Costco, which is awesome because they've got all Australian beef. But I'm going to go to Costco for the Australian lamb that they have at Costco. And some, some cheeses, and going to do it up. And it's 5:09 a.m. Good thing I got that nap. All right. Yeah, that's it for now. I feel like there's something I forgot to say, but that's not unusual, nor should it be concerning at this point. Okay, that's it for mixing and mastering with Airwindows, and I'll see you on the other side somewhere. Over and out.